Hello, welcome to the Alone Show. I'm your host, Tommy Alone. In this episode, I haven't brought on regulars because it's pretty early this morning, so yeah. But as for our guest, she's from Scotland. She's a business mindset and manifestation coach. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll give you Morgana McCabe Allen.
Hi there. Thank you so much for having me today.
Anytime. So, how's life?
Life is wonderful. We recently had COVID, but we're all much improved and enjoying some uncharacteristic lovely weather here.
Okay, great. And have you been up to much recently?
Uh, I recently became a number one best-selling author, so that was nice.
Wow, okay. What book did you write?
So my book is called Unbecoming: Your Unorthodox Guide to Radical Wholeness, and it's based on my years of doctoral research and my experience as a coach over the last several years as well.
Okay. And tell me more about what you do.
I predominantly work with women and I work on how our reality and identity are co created with all the people, places, things, ideas, social constructs, embodied emotions, our own physical bodies, and all kinds of other things that we interact with. And so much of that is invisible to us because we're conditioned into it. So much of it uh, it is cultured in a way that it's not open or is not accessible for us to change without doing some radical deprogramming. So that's sort of the gist of what we work on, is to work through the everything that's held in our being and our way of being, and to then intentionally create a new pattern for our lives.
Okay, great. And what got you into becoming a business mindset and manifestation coach?
uh, I was a very interdisciplinary scholar, working across fields like archaeology, anthropology, sociology, history, psychology, theology, and it was all very much in the sort of the masculine realm of it gets more and more competitive in academia. And I was always very good at that. I passed my master's and my PhD theses without corrections, and I've spoken on lots of international conferences and all of that stuff. So I was good at that game, but it felt incredibly toxic to me. It was just not actually uh, aligned with my way of being and experiencing the world, and it wasn't compatible with things like motherhood and so many other things in so many ways. And I really thought, I'm not the only one that's struggling with this. I see not only women, but men in academia struggling with this continual competitiveness for actually very small prizes, and the struggle with the feelings of worthiness and the constant imposter syndrome and things. And I thought, I want to help people with this.
Okay, that's great. That's great. And when you do have clients asking for your help, what is the most common question they always ask you?
I think one of the most common questions is, can they still be successful if they undo all these things? If you unravel the trauma that just being in the world has caused you, and I don't mean the trauma with a capital T, I mean just what happens in the due course of participating in culture, especially through things like patriarchal structures and racism and the focus on able-bodiedness and neurotypicality and all these things, right? Is if you undo all of that and you let yourself be whole, you let yourself be you, can you actually still be successful? Because we've been so ingrained that success has to look a certain way that it can be scary to imagine that you're going to try for a different kind of success, or that you're going to try a different route to achieving it.
Okay, great. And what was the best piece of advice that you've given to one of your clients?
The best piece of advice I've given to one of my clients. So this is probably the trickiest question, purely because I'm famous for not knowing what I said 2 seconds ago. But I think one of the best pieces of advice is also a piece that I received for myself as well. And that was that you have to consider yourself worthy now. You have to recognize that you're there for a reason. I took part in a think tank type setup quite some years ago. With I was invited to be part of that, along with a group of people that are at the very top of their field. And at that time, I was still a PhD student. I felt so unworthy to be there, and it was my supervisor that said to me, and this is advice I give to people often, he wouldn't have asked me to take part in that. He wouldn't have staked his reputation to have me be there if he didn't think there was a reason for me to be there, if he didn't think that I had earned my place. And also that just who you are and the way that you think and the way that you be and the questions that you ask and those things, they're valuable in themselves. We usually have no idea what it is about ourselves that are valuable. And there comes a point where you have to stop worrying about it and start just showing up.
Nice. And with the businesses that your clients are trying to start up, what kind of businesses were they trying to start up?
They're not always trying to start up the business. Sometimes I work with people that are right at the beginning, but I work with people with 7 and 8 figure businesses as well. It's really got more to do in every case with feeling whole and feeling good about yourself, and not pushing and struggling and hurting yourself in the process of doing your work. But typically, I work with people who are service providers in some respect. So they may be other coaches, but they're very often things like web designers or graphic designers or copywriters or course creators or travel agents or people that are working with something like telecoms or something like that. So something where people are working directly with other people, um, providing some sort of expertise led service. Because what I'm really uh, interested in, what is deeply aligned with my life and my research, is helping people to deliver their real natural genius into the world, rather than, for example, to sell products, which is a wonderful business, but it's just not the thing that I typically help people with.
Okay. Hmm. Interesting. I like that. So, do you ever travel often?
Not so much since COVID has all started. We haven't really traveled at all since then, and less so since having children, because being here with my kids is just the greatest gift that life has, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, what do you like about being a business mindset and manifestation coach?
I love seeing people realize that the world is not closed to them, to realize that the restrictions that they have believed were real, and the things that they thought were their own shortcomings or things that were missing for them, or something like that, are all cultural constructs, and that there's a way forward from every place. And I often work with people who are in marginalized groups of some description or another. I myself am a member of the LGBTQ community. I have invisible Black heritage, although that doesn't impact how I live my life. There is generational trauma associated with that. And I have an invisible disability and various other things. So most people that come to me have in some way experienced the world as a, well, let's put it this way: they're not the person that the world was made for. They're not that sort of affluent, educated white man who the world sort of paves, gold ahead of them, right? And of course, I'm being facetious there. I know it also, life can be very challenging for men from all walks of life, but the best part of it then is seeing people realize that we can have a world, that we can be creators of a world that does things differently, and that opens up real spaces for people and opens up possibility for people, and that allows us to not overcome limitations in inverted commas, but to write a whole new script and operate in a whole new space.
Okay, nice. So, throughout your work as a mindset and manifestation coach, what have been the high and low points?
The high points definitely are the individual client journeys. Of course, I've had great high points personally, like the book is certainly a high point. And being able to retire my husband is a huge high point. So he left his 9 to 5 in the summer of 2019. Um, but really, the high points for me are the client journeys. The low point for sure was I hired an ads company to um, to run Facebook ads for me, and they were very slow putting it all together and stuff like that. But when they did eventually create deliverables and get an advert up, they actually got my Facebook page and Instagram page permanently banned from ever running ads ever, not just in this business but in any business, on the very first day that they had pressed go with the ads. And I went through a long process of challenging them on that and trying to appeal to Facebook and all the rest of it. And eventually, I just had to accept that that was 100% a sunk cost and walk away and start my social media over. So right now, I've got something like 150 followers on Facebook and like 300 on Instagram because we had to start back at the very beginning. And and you know what? Actually, I'm okay with that. I think that it's been a beautiful opportunity to become even more focused, but it was a low point for me. The reason it was a low point was not so much to doing with the stuff with the audience and things. It was a low point because the reason I signed up with those people was that they were actually manipulating my trauma points, right? Like they were their advert from the very beginning, it looked like a My Little Pony castle, and they were speaking to the little girl inside of me, and the sales call was very manipulative, and they promised things that they had no intention of ever delivering. And that it's challenging when when we're confronted with the thing that we think that we're best at and we realize we didn't do a good job of it this time is always challenging. But I think it's also really important that we meet that head on and that we learn from it every time.
Oh yes, absolutely. So, where do you see yourself 20 years from now?
Ooh, 20 years from now, maybe I'll have my first grandchildren. um well, maybe my kids are a little young, we'll see. But what I would love to create for us is a beautiful life where our children stay in relationship with us in the sort of close and lovely way that my family is. And I would love to be, doing amazing sailing adventures with them. That's something that's a real passion for me. And professionally, I would love to make a really positive impact on, you know, thousands or maybe even hundreds of thousands or millions of people in terms of how they experience being in the world and how they experience their worthiness and their readiness and what abundance means to them.
Okay, nice, nice. So, if you ever wanted to start a new business, what kind of business would it be?
Me, if I was going to start another business, that's a good question. I have had multiple businesses over the years, and I started my first business actually when I was 8, which was a live animal business that I had until I was 14. I've had product businesses, I've had various things. So I think I would like to try something different that I've not tried before. If I was going to start another business, I might go down the route of something like retreats and like in-person events.
Nice, nice. And if you have to ever live anywhere in the world, where would it be?
That's the $1 million question right there. We've been trying to figure that out so that we could move country for some time. We were going to move to Lanzarote just as COVID started, and that all, of course, got sort of stopped. And our passion for moving there specifically has waned. And so now, actually, I mentioned a boat already, but I think I would live on the sea and I would sail different places. Like, I would love to just sail around the whole entire Mediterranean or like sail around the Caribbean. Yeah.
Okay, that's nice. Is there any countries around the world that you haven't been to but you just really want to go there?
Definitely. Many. One that immediately pops into my mind is that I'd love to go to Japan. I have some connections with Japan already, and um, there's so much sort of beauty and artistry in tiny things there, like cakes, for example, just absolute works of art. So that's one. I'd love to go to Egypt and go to the pyramids. That's another. So those are probably the sort of top places that I can think of. That I'm like, yeah, they're on the list for the next 3 to 5 years, COVID permitting.
Okay. Cool. Cool. Who was the last person you've talked to?
The last person I spoke to, I just came off the call with a client just right before I came into this session. And we were having a really beautiful deep dive into what I call the shine, which is a part of yourself that holds your best thoughts and feelings and your best reality.
Interesting. So, if your mind was an island, what would it look like?
That's a good question. I think my husband's answer would be, well, it would definitely look like you were on mushrooms. um, my very very diverse landscapes. That's my passion is to be interdisciplinary and explore lots of different things. So I think I would have a little bit of every kind of landscape. There would be a volcano, and there'd be waterfalls, and there'd be some rainforest, and a bit of desert, and a little bit of everything.
Okay. If you had to pick between skydiving, bungee jumping, or scuba diving, which one would you choose?
I already have chosen scuba diving. I love scuba diving.
Okay. Cool. Cool. What was the worst piece of advice you were ever given?
Um, that's a really hard question. Um, I think probably the worst piece of advice that I can think of in this particular moment um, was that I was told when I was about 17 that I would never be able to have kids because I have some quite significant menstrual issues, which were a consequence of having had an eating disorder for most of my teens, and I really grieved that. And uh, the support around about it was really not very good, and the counselor that I saw for that was really, I don't know why that person was doing that job. And so I lived for a lot of my life with this feeling that I would never have kids. And it had some quite significant impacts on me. And I really wish that somebody had said to me, don't let, just because somebody is a doctor, don't let them tell you what's possible for your body. Don't give up on your body's innate capacity to heal. And I did go on to do, lovely healing work, and I have 3 beautiful children. But I really wish that I had been, instead of being told that, like, medical conditions are real and finite, I wish I had understood sooner that part of it is also around about your belief. If you believe that it's going to impact you in a huge way, there's a much bigger chance that it will. And if you believe that you can heal it, you have a much better chance that you can. I'm not saying that medicine is nothing. I'm not saying that it's irrelevant, but there's definitely a component of how much we participate in our own health or ill health. And I participated in my ill health until I learned otherwise. So I think that maybe is a piece of advice that we're all being given that's not good for any of us.
Hmm. Okay. I understand that. What bad habit do you want to get rid of?
So my number one bad habit that I would love to get rid of is that whenever any of my children is ill, I bite my nails, and then it takes them ages to grow back again.
Okay. Okay. What's the best way to start the morning?
The best way to start the morning,
Hmm.
I mean, the very first thing that I would suggest that anybody does in the morning is, frame it as a good day. Like, don't wake up and immediately jump into your worries and start thinking about all the things that you have to do or anything like that. Like, wake up and think, wow, I get to be alive today. It's what a wondrous occasion. This is fantastic. um, and then from there you can build whatever you want into your morning routine in terms of are you going to meditate, are you going to go for a run or something like that. But start your day with the intention that it's going to be a great day.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. What flavor of ice cream do you wish existed?
Do I wish existed? Um, Oh my goodness, my brain is going to some really strange places. I started thinking about like, what about tuna fish ice cream? No, I really, that's not my answer. I don't wish that existed. I don't know why that came out. Um, I don't know. I think all the good flavors already do exist.
Okay, that's cool. What restaurants do you eat at most?
Oh, so there's a restaurant called Cafe Andaluz, which is a tapas bar, and they're really lovely. And I lived in Spain for a year, which is where I got this sort of taste for Spanish food. But my husband and I actually had our wedding. We hired the whole restaurant and had our wedding there, and we had like a 10 course tapas meal. This is 10 years ago, actually. In this May, our anniversary is coming up, and so whenever we're celebrating something, we go to Cafe Andaluz, and that's our favorite place.
Nice, nice. What's what's your biggest regret in life?
Honestly, I don't really have any regrets at this point because I've come to a place where I live with intention and I recognize where I am and that I wouldn't be here if everything that I've experienced in my life, which I mean, I've experienced significant trauma and multiple abusers and I was very ill as a child and a whole bunch of things, but I still feel like I have arrived at a version of me that I get to be every day, that I am glad to be with, a beautiful life with my husband and kids, and to regret anything that came before would be to regret where I am now. So I wouldn't say that I necessarily have regret in that sense. Um, what I do notice is that I sometimes catch myself and think, go faster, do more, or later you might look back and think that you didn't do everything that you wanted to do. And so I that's where I kind of meet the edge of it is actually in the moment that I'm living now and where I will go next.
Cool, cool. If someone wrote a book about you, what do you think its title would be?
Oh, it's an interesting question. Um, Maybe just my first name because it's such an unusual name. One time, another Morgana, the only other one I pretty much had heard of at the time, got a TV show, and I literally got 500 people congratulating me on having a TV show. It's like it's not me. There's actually another Morgana.
Yeah. If you could make one wish right now, what would it be?
Well, now I'm thinking about ice cream and thinking, it, what are these magical flavors I don't know about? If I could make one wish, I would wish that. How do I even put it into words? I don't want to be cliche and say like world peace or something like that, but I would wish that everybody would wake up to their capacity to be a creator of a better reality, and that people would start to create things that were important to them instead of chasing after money because you can have both, and that we could create prosperity for everybody and peace for everybody and create a better world together.
Nice, nice. If you could switch lives with someone, who would it be and why?
If I could switch lives with someone, uh, okay, well, this one might sound like a little bit of a random one, but I'm a bisexual woman and I've been married to a man for the last 10 years. We've been together for 13 years. I think I would switch lives with somebody that was walking on the other side of that, like, and experience the other side of my sexual identity, my sexual reality.
Okay, yeah. I would be interested to know that. When was the last time you worked incredibly hard?
That's an interesting question because hard is relative, right? Like if you're doing something that you're so passionate about and that you absolutely love, is it hard? I mean, on 3 days out of every fortnight, I work very long days. So is that hard? I don't know. I get to speak with some of the most amazing business owners that I absolutely adore from different countries around the world in that time. So um, I think the last time I was working and it felt hard was probably not even in this business. But do I do I apply myself? Do I put in effort? Absolutely. I wrote the whole book in 17 days and then edited it in around 3 days. So that was intense, although I loved it.
Cool. Are you a cat person or a dog person?
Oh, this is very challenging because I'm actually allergic, very allergic to cats. I would say energetically, I'm a cat person, There's a lot of things in cats that I find very magical, and I even did part of my PhD actually talked about the human relationship with cats. But I can't personally be with cats. Um, so yeah, I like dogs though. I like them both, and I could have a dog, but I think I might be thinking about a cat.
That's nice. What's your favorite drink?
Um, Probably fresh celery juice. But the celery has to be really fresh, like buy it that day and then juice it. And that's definitely one of my favorites. And I love to start the day with a celery juice.
Nice. If you have to pick any character in a book, movie, or TV show, who is most similar to you?
Mm, that's an interesting question. I think growing up, I really identified with characters like Spock from Star Trek, who was like half human and half Vulcan, or Deanna Troi, also from Star Trek, who was half Betazoid and half human, and other characters like that. So they're nearly all from Star Trek, by the way. I'm just gonna say, but I really identified with that kind of feeling like you're of two worlds and kind of neither. I always felt like an outsider.
Okay, okay. Which recent news story have you found most interesting?
Which recent news story have I found the most interesting?
Yep.
I don't know that interesting is necessarily the exact right word, but I feel sort of deeply attached to what's been happening between the Ukraine and Russia in a lot of different ways. Um, Part of my earlier research, because I've really researched like fear and control and social manipulation and various other things that um but part of my earlier research life was the Spanish Civil War, and we're seeing, I feel like there's just so much capacity for this to escalate. So that's something that um I have trepidation around, and sort of, yeah,
Okay,
that's the big news story is to.
okay. That is all we have for this episode. It was great having you here, Morgana, talking about your work as a business mindset and manifestation coach and many other things. It was been amazing.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been such a pleasure to be here.
Anytime. And until next time, stay tuned for more.